Our next guest was on previously for her best-selling novel, Drowning, after her best-selling first novel, Falling, the latest and greatest that's coming out on Tuesday, August 13th, but you can pre-order right now. Worst Case Scenario by T.J. Newman. Good to see you, T.J. Newman.
Good to see you, too. Thank you for having me back.
You got it. And Worst Case Scenario is all about being rerouted through Newark. And so you should have reached out to me to help you with your research. I've been waiting. I mean, I cannot get on Newark Airport enough, you know. I mean,
you have described a real life worst case scenario. I've been there. The worst delay I ever had in my life was in Newark.
So we're like this on that front.
We can show battle scars. It's yeah.
But Worst Case Scenario is not about that. I'll give you the floor on how best to describe it, since this is your book. What do you have for me, TJ?
Worst Case Scenario is essentially just that. It is what happens when a commercial airliner crashes into a nuclear power plant.
So there's that.
There's that.
And it crashes because the pilot has a heart attack.
Has a heart attack. First, it's not a spoiler. First sentence of the book is 35,000 feet. Pilot has a widowmaker heart attack and dies instantly.
But isn't there normally somebody else to help on that front?
There is, not if they're in the bathroom.
Oh, yikes.
Look at you. Good Lord, how the hell do you think this stuff up? T.J. Newman.
10 years working on the plane. Big imagination.
Really, so again, your origin story is you spent 10 years as a flight attendant.
Correct.
And so in between, shifts, or you're literally sitting on a plane and you're thinking about this stuff.
All of the above.
Okay.
The idea for this one, actually,
yes.
the seed for the idea for this was planted when I was doing research for my first book, Falling. And I would ask pilots all the time, lots of questions about, the nuts and bolts of flying, the policy, the procedures,
yes.
that aspect of flying. But I would also ask them questions about the emotional aspect of being a pilot.
Mm-hmm.
And the question that I would ask over and over was, what's your biggest fear? As a pilot, what is your biggest fear? And it was kind of surprising because the answers started being fairly repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of similar answers about wires. Pilots get worried about getting caught up in power lines. They worry about decision making, that they will make the wrong call in an emergency, or that they'll freeze and that they won't be able to make any call in an emergency.
And you would ask this of pilots that were piloting your flights that you
sure.
were working on?
These are my friends. These are guys I'm flying with. It would just, casual conversation. I would just ask them things like
just out of the blue?
Yeah. Hey, long flight. You gotta, drive to the airport, from the hotel.
That's sort of like, lack of a better analogy, asking a golfer about, what do you do when you take your club back here, and then suddenly puts a swing thought in their head, and then suddenly they're slicing it all the way into the woods. You know what I mean? Like, you're not concerned about putting this thought in your colleague's head?
No.
Okay.
No. They're telling me they're putting their thoughts in my head.
So
yeah. So it's the other way around.
Look at me, I should have, and now you're a best-selling novelist
pilots.
over that.
We're talking about professional golfers. They got this. They're under control.
So I'm the weak one. Don't ask me about my swing, basically.
I won't ask you your biggest fear in flying either, or your
Well, I mean, I already told you it's flying through Newark Airport.
Right. This is true. This is true.
Right.
But all the answers were kind of, a little bit repetitive. But then one day, I had one pilot who straight face looked at me and said, "My biggest fear is a commercial airliner crashing into a nuclear power plant." And it caught me off guard.
Damn.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, what? And I also thought he was joking to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of laughed it off and started explaining, all the reasons why I wasn't afraid of that. And, they've shown, we live in a post 9/11 world. They've shown that if something was to happen like that,
yes.
that the containment structures are fortified enough that this isn't going to be an issue. I give all my reasons as to why I'm not afraid of it.
Yes.
And he just listens to me and he's nodding his head the whole time. And when I finally finish, he looks at me and goes, "And that's exactly what they want you to think."
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so that was when the idea for this story, the seed was planted.
You immediately wrote that down somewhere?
Something like that. You don't have to write down. That one gets locked away. Yeah. I'm not going to forget that. I'm going to lose sleep over it, but I'm not going to forget it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then now comes this book.
So now comes this book, and I have to tell you, Rich, I do a lot of research for all my books.
Sure.
And it didn't take me long to understand what he was implying when he said that.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to tell you, the research for this book, it scared the hell out of me. And it really actually gave me pause to writing it, because I wasn't sure I wanted to live in the world that I saw possible for the months that it would take to write this book. It's a pretty scary thing, because the premise of this book is actually pretty plausible.
Worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario. Not just for a plane crashing into a nuclear power plant, which, yes, is an extreme example, but,
Right.
The vulnerabilities of a nuclear power plant are they're there.
Sure.
Yeah.
I know. And so, but let's just hope that this doesn't happen while the co-pilot's in the bathroom, right?
Again, this is a black swan event. This is a very,
Sure.
They call events like this actually low probability, high consequence events.
Sure.
Right? Like, what are the chances? What are the odds that something's gonna happen? It's not going to, but chances aren't zero.
Worst case scenario by TJ Newman, a new novel that's going to be available next week, Tuesday, August 13th. Wherever you get your books, you can pre-order right now. Where are we on turning your other books into TV shows or movies or anything like
They're
that?
moving along. Falling is with Universal, and Drowning is with Warner Brothers.
Do we have actors, actresses attached?
We have
attached?
director attached, a Oscar-nominated director of Captain Phillips in 1993. Paul Greengrass is directing Drowning.
Oh, that's serious business
It's
there.
very serious
didn't he
business.
I think he did. Did he do the Firstborn or did the Secondborn? The Secondborn.
Yep.
Okay.
Secondborn.
All right.
Yep, feeling in very good hands there.
Okay.
And the screenplay for Drowning is being adapted by Steve Kloves, who is best known for the Harry Potter movies.
Correct.
Yeah, which is a pretty substantial adaptation. So feeling very, very good that my
How
story's
psyched
in
are
his
you?
hands. I know, extremely.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
How involved are you in either of these? Like how deep do you get involved in this?
With Falling, I'm actually doing the adaptation myself. So
You
I'm
are?
writing the screenplay for Falling. Yeah.
How do you like that endeavor of doing something completely different? Writing it.
Completely different. You're totally right. It is like learning a new language. It has been the most wild learning experience, and so fascinating too, because like I wrote, over 40 drafts of that book before it became the final product. I know that story backwards, and I thought I'd figured out every way that you could possibly tell that story.
Right.
And then I go to adapt it, and it's like, oh, there's still whole new aspects to this that I didn't know. To translate, how do you take a story that took 300 pages in a book, how do you compress it down to 100 pages for a script?
Right.
While still telling the same story. And also, some things that work in a book don't necessarily work in a movie, and vice versa. So it's been a fascinating experience to reshape that story again.
And are you circling around the thespians that you're interested in right now, or what?
I'm not sure what I'm allowed to say.
Well, I don't want to get you in trouble.
Yeah, I don't want anybody to
So you're in a
bust through
holding
the door.
pattern, to use the phrase?
There you go. We should translate everything to.
You're in a holding pattern?
Yeah, exactly. In a holding pattern.
Man, I hate holding patterns. What do flight attendants think of holding patterns? Terrible, right? It's the worst.
Yeah.
No?
We're ready for the shift to be done. We're
You're
ready
ready,
to
right?
land.
You're thinking like it's
thinking
over.
we're already at the hotel. We're already thinking of going down to the bar to have a drink.
You are?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We're just like the passengers. We're ready to get to the hotel. We're ready to get home.
Yeah, I got caught in a holding pattern going into New York City the other day, wound up in Pittsburgh. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
These things happen.
Exactly.
And then we wound up flying back to New York that night anyway. Mm-hmm. But that's for another novel. So we're going to rope you in, if you don't mind, TJ Newman, into another conversation since we last had you on. I think the last time, what did we go into? We went in the shoes off on a plane issue, and also the middle seat armrest situation. Did you ever did you ever have a break up an argument over who has a middle seat armrest in your career?
No, that's one.
Passengers never had.
No.
Okay.
I don't think so.
So what's the craziest thing somebody ever hit the call button for you on?
The first thing that came to mind, this wasn't the craziest things, but it just shows you, I firmly believe that the moment you step inside an airport,
Yes.
like brilliant, smart people, just common sense and just like logical thinking just out the door.
Out the window.
Out the window.
Normal smart people just can't think straight.
Right. We were taking off out of LA, and we're call button goes off right after we leave, like right after Wheels Up. So call button goes off.
You can't even get up to go get it, right?
Exactly. But when it happens that soon, also, I kind of think it's an emergency. So I'll break the rules. I'll bend the rules for that just because it's like something may be seriously happening.
Yes.
So call button goes off. I get up. I go out there. Woman's sitting at the window, and she's looking out the window. And I said, "Can I help you, ma'am?" And she's pointing out the window at Catalina, at island out there at Catalina. And she goes, "Is that Hawaii?"
Hit the call button.
Hit the call button, got me out of my seat at a time that was not safe or prudent for me to ask me if the the landmass outside the window
in California.
Yes. Was Hawaii.
I hope you said yes.
How did you respond?
I think I put on, my standard flight attendant smile that just masks all internal thought. The most gentle smile I could plaster on, my customer service smile, and I was just like, I don't think so. I think that might be Catalina, although I'm not sure. And just sort of walked away.
But you didn't admonish?
No.
Come on, though.
No.
But she shouldn't be hitting a call button. Like,
No,
this
we've all
isn't like
been
Ask Jeeves.
And I try
from back in the day here.
I try to remember, anytime I do something like that, I remember the time that I was shopping in a store and there were plants there were succulents, and I was curious as to the maintenance and care on them.
Yes.
And so I got someone who worked at the store, and I said, I'm a flight attendant, I'm out of town a lot.
Yes.
Are these plants, how hardy are these plants, or is it going to die? And the woman looks at me and she goes, it should be okay because it's plastic. And so every time I want to give someone, a hard time for a Catalina question, I just remember the time you asked a woman if a fake plant was hard to maintain?
Listen, you're being too kind because you didn't ask a question in, say, the 3 to 5 minute period where there's a regulation by the federal government in which everybody needs to stay seated for everyone's safety. Like, if that person working the flower shop had that 5-minute period, then I think we're apples to apples. You know what I'm saying?
That's fair.
That's what I'm saying. So I wouldn't have minded if you gave a little bit of pushback, but you're too nice. Wow. That's awesome. So what about this question? I'm kind of stunned that this is an issue, which a lot of people are then stunned to think that I find this of issue for people. Where do you stand on reclining your seat? I mean, that people apparently find this an affront if somebody reclines the seat.
I'm 5'3" 3/4", so it is not of extreme importance to me.
Yes.
I don't usually recline the seat just in case there's someone taller behind me who needs that extra leg room. Yeah. I also just don't find it to be that much more comfortable if I'm, at a 90-degree angle versus.
Right.
I don't do math.
Understand.
And a writer, I don't do math and angles.
You're more verbal.
Yeah.
I didn't do well on the math and the SAT either. Yeah, I was more verbal as well, although I'm not a best-selling novelist. Yeah. But removing your own height from the equation, just in general, is it an affront to actually utilize the button that's on the...
It's not an affront. The button's there. You can use it.
That's what Chris and I say. There are many others who think that it's an issue, like TJ Jefferson, who is of the other TJ, if you will, on the set right now.
Long TJ.
He has a problem if somebody reclines in his space.
Well, yeah, but TJ, how tall are you?
6'3".
There you go.
So what's the cutoff? What's the height cutoff for being offended by somebody, reclining into them, right?
To me, that just comes to common courtesy.
Yeah.
I think if I recline my seat into TJ's space, I don't think he'd be upset. He would understand that it is within my right.
Oh, no, I'd be upset.
No, you'd be upset. That's what I'm saying.
I wouldn't do nothing.
We talked about this.
I wouldn't punch the back of your chair or nothing, but I'd sit there and talk about you the entire time.
See, that's what I'm saying. And remarkably, Larry David, sitting in that chair a couple months ago, was upset with me that I have no problem reclining. None. And I will not only do that, but we already discussed about FAA violations. I will actually use the gravitational force of takeoff to just recline
That's so
on the spot.
disrespectful.
Oh, now that I'll push back on. Now I'm going to put on my flight attendant hat. Do you know the reason that you have to have your seat in a full and upright position during
Please.
taxi takeoff
Please.
and landing?
Never thought
Please.
about it.
It is for the egress of the row behind you. So in the event of that an emergency evacuation is necessary,
Yes.
the people behind you, you've now blocked their exit off the aircraft.
How have I done that?
Because you
What if I have an aisle? I mean, what if I got a
something
window?
in the way.
Huh?
You put something in the way of them.
So I'm actually causing a dangerous
Yes.
situation.
Yes, that is the point. Here's the thing that I feel like people don't understand. Flight attendants are not like, we don't want to like control. We don't want you to be uncomfortable. I don't care where your bag is. I do care that if it's out, the person sitting in the window next to you is not going to be able to get over that bag if they need to evacuate the aircraft. And in the event of an emergency evacuation, those seconds matter. That's the point of the reclining seats being upright. Same thing with tray tables. That's the reason we have your tray tables up.
Okay.
Everything is so that
It's an obstruction situation.
It's an obstruction situation. The whole idea is how do you keep this area as clear as possible so that we can get off of this airplane as fast as possible if we have an emergency situation.
So reclining, okay. Using the ascent gravitational force, not okay.
Not okay.
So you got to wait for the beep, for the bong. So what
Yeah.
you got to wait for the
Yeah.
okay.
Taxi takeoff and landing is statistically the most dangerous phase of flight. So if anything is going to go wrong, it's
Yes.
going to be most likely during that period of time. So just for that, little bit, just keep your seat upright. Although I do love that you use it as like a rocket blast
Yes,
off,
correct.
basically.
G
It's-
forces.
Yeah.
Whatever G forces there are. I'm not a scientist either. I'm
Yeah.
trying to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
to my-
I
to-
appreciate that.
to my advantage.
Yeah. A little Top Gun going on right now.
I'm
a little
always
afterburner.
exactly. I'm
Yeah.
like I'm Maverick is what I'm saying of
Yeah.
of seat reclining.
Yeah.
I'm the Maverick of seat reclining. If you don't mind.
Yeah, I get it.
Thank
I
you.
get the impulse. I totally get the impulse.
Well, now you know, Rich, that's nothing to be proud of, as TJ just told you.
See?
I tried to tell you, Larry David tried to tell you, now TJ's telling you.
No, again, I am now going to stop doing this at the most dangerous time of the flight. I have been taught. I have now been corrected. I'm going to be a better citizen.
I doubt it.
But I have the right to utilize the button that is there on the armrest to actually take advantage of reclining my seat and not think about it.
So it's okay that you put your seat
Bigger problem-
into my face like this and I got to sit here for
Bigger
6
problem.
hours?
I have a bigger problem with you using the back of my seat as a way for you to get out of yours.
Well, you can't have it both ways, bro. You
No,
can't
no, I
recline
can,
your
actually.
seat and then have me try to shimmy my way out. No, I'm gonna grab your seat to
got a
stand up.
point.
First of all of these are much less on the transgression scale of hitting the call button to ask about what's outside your window as
That
you're
is
taking
very
off.
true.
I
That's
mean,
very true.
bless you for not ejecting that woman.
She thought about it.
That's for. But you should use that in some of these. I know that doesn't kind of fit maybe the spirit of what you're writing about, but
That should be a
the
scene
first
in the movie.
one, Falling, had a little bit more of passengers being a little more,
okay,
like that,
Okay.
asking some pretty interesting questions. and-
okay.
yeah.
What's next? Do you already have another one? Are you already on to the other one, or no?
I've always got something going. I'm working on lots of stuff at all points in time, but I got to say, 3 books and a script in 4 years. I'm taking a vacation.
You are.
Yeah, I need to take a vacation.
Okay.
I need to take a little break.
And so, have you gone on planes where you're recognized, and they're like, the author of all of these plane disasters is now sitting on our flight right now?
I try to go incognito for that purpose. Sometimes it's not, the best. Pulling out this book with the cover on the flight is a little.
It's
I
aggressive.
get it. I do get it.
That's right.
Yeah, but when I go on tour for my book, like I'm getting ready to go on tour for this, and I'll bring
Sure.
copies of the book for the crew, and I give it to them, and usually there's a pretty big instant connection because
You're one of them.
I'm one of them. It's a tight community. Yeah, aviation family. It's a tight community.
Worst Case Scenario by T.J. Newman, a novel that will be available where all books are sold by just grabbing a copy, where all books are sold on Tuesday, August 13th. But obviously you can pre-order right now and keep an eye out for Falling and Drowning as well to catch up on your work, and keep an eye out again for everything else going on this program. Good to see you here. Thank you. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.